Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It's Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022. I'm Andrew Hansen, ready to break down the Honda Classic. It's time for golf to move to Florida, and we're going to kick it off this week at PGA National in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, with a fun event, a tough event, much different than last week and what we've been seeing recently. They've been playing the Honda Classic at PGA National since 2007, and the winning scores have ranged between only 5 under and 13 under. So it would be very, very surprising if we saw something like we've seen recently with winners 20 and under or better. And last year in this event, which is again played at PGA National, a par 70, 7,125 yards, the scoring average was 71.102. So more than a stroke over par each round. And most golf fans know this course with the Bear Trap, 15 through 17. That stretch of really tough golf, par 3, par 4, par 3, water everywhere, big scores everywhere. And if you want to win this tournament or contend, you have to manage that trio of holes well. But not many have been able to do that. Since 2007, 87.8% of the players have averaged over par in that stretch during this tournament. So that'll be fun to watch. And, that sort of challenge of making par or being under par stretches throughout the course. And it's really tough tee to green because there's water everywhere. And it's going to be even tougher this year. They've actually lengthened the rough to about 3 inches. But if you look at another key stat here, in the last 5 years on the PGA Tour, the average greens in regulation percentage is 65.6. But on this course, it's 59%. So it's a lot tougher to get onto the green in regulation. And that's what makes these scores so much higher in relation to par. And it leads into the key stat of the week for me. I'm going to start with a key stat here. We'll go over some of the top finishers in recent years. Then I'm going to hit a second stat this week and then talk about some other categories, including some value plays. But the first stat I want to look at this week is strokes gained tee to green. If you look at the winners in 2018, 19, and 20 in the Honda Classic, all of them finished number one for the week in strokes gained tee to green. So what I did is went and looked at the season stats this year, strokes gained tee to green, guys who are in the top 25 in that category who are playing this week. There are only 8 guys. So a limited group. And that reminds me, the other thing that's different about this course and this event than what we've seen recently is, remember last week at the Genesis, the top 11 players in the world were participating. This week, none of the top 11 are participating. The highest world-ranked golfer playing this week is Louis Oosthuizen. He's number 13. So it is a much different group of participants. So it's tougher to find guys at the top of the statistical leaderboards because a lot of guys are taking this week off. So let's look at the guys who are in the top 25 strokes gained tee to green. Those 8 are led by Sungjae Im. He's number 7 in that stat, but he's the highest ranked player who's playing this week, according to that stat. He's also the most expensive player on DraftKings at $11,000. And he won here 2 years ago in 2020. Last week at the Genesis, he finished tied for 33rd. And he was pretty good with his scrambling, which is something I'll talk more about later today. But Sungjae certainly a key guy to consider here as a pay-up option. I will have some exposure to him. Next in strokes gained tee to green, Joaquin Niemann. He, of course, won at the Genesis. What a incredible performance. Starting out 63-63 on that course, setting that 36-hole record, hanging on for victory. So congratulations to him. He's 10,600 this week on DraftKings. I'm probably going to fade him. He doesn't have the course history here that some of these other guys do. and certainly an emotional, tough week for him mentally to go through that tournament and to lead it every night, as he admitted after winning. So that should take a toll on him. He did lead the field in strokes gained approach at the Genesis. That's why he did so well. So if he's able to fight through the fatigue, then he could certainly contend again. But I'm leaning Sungjae over him at this point. Next is Daniel Berger, another pay-up option, 10,400. And the thing with him is he seems to be a perfect fit for this course. He's from Florida. He finished tied for fourth here 2 years ago, but we know he's also been dealing with that back injury, missed the cut at the Waste Management. So, if he's healthy, then maybe he breaks out and gets back in the top 5 here, but I'm likely to fade him again on DraftKings at that price. Next is Ryan Palmer, 7,900. And if you'll recall last week, I talked about how he had shot an 81 at Pebble Beach. Then he comes back last week and misses the cut again, 75, 74. So I'm going to fade him until he gets back into form. Louis Oosthuizen is next, 10,800. And he is just baffling on this course for me because he's really seems like a perfect fit with his game, tee to green. He's also near the top of the other stat I'm going to hit later in the show. But he's only made 2 out of 6 cuts here. So that's the challenge, is for some reason he just hasn't put it together at PGA National, and he's expensive at 10,800. Last event at the Waste Management for him, he was tied for 14th. So he's certainly playable, but just not the course history that I would expect for him. Next is Keith Mitchell at 9,100. Now, he's a lot cheaper than some of those other guys I've just mentioned. He's a former winner here. He won it in 2019, coming in on a real high note with recent finishes of tied for 12th and tied for 10th. So Keith Mitchell is a guy I'm likely to have a lot of exposure to this week. Next is Russell Knox, 8,100. And how about his finishes the last 3 weeks? This is probably my favorite stat of the week. His last 3 finishes tied for 33rd 3 times in a row. So at 8,100, we could live with a tie for 33rd again this week. We'd rather have him be in the top 20. And something that he has going for himself on this course is during that time frame from 07 to the present, in the bear trap, he's been the best, 6 under cumulative score. So he knows how to navigate that stretch better than anyone. And that's a big leg up on this course. So Knox will be in my player pool. And then last in the top 25, Chris Kirk, who's making a nice little comeback after dealing with some off the course issues. He is ranked well there. He's a nice mid-tier price of 7,500. He had it tied for 14th also at the Waste Management along with Oosthuizen. So he's playable for me in that price range. All right, before we get to our next stat, let's look at the other winners in recent years on this course. Matt Jones won it last year. He's 9,000. He is 40th in strokes gained tee to green. So his stats this year match up well with this course. He did finish tied for 15th at the Genesis last week. So playable, but a guy like that, I usually don't like to pay 9,000 for on DraftKings. Brandon Hagee was the runner-up last year. He's 6,500, but not coming in on a high note, missing his last 2 cuts. Honorable mention from last year is CT Pan because he finished 3rd. Nice $7,700 price tag for him. I had some exposure to him last week. He finished 9th at the Genesis, and he's 3 for 5 and made cuts here. In 20, I mentioned that Sungjae was the victor. Runner-up that year was Mackenzie Hughes. Good course history. He's made 4 of 5 cuts here. Last 2 events, tied for 16th and a missed cut. But Hughes is playable for me at 8,300. In 19, the winner was Keith Mitchell, as I mentioned. How about the runners-up that year? Ricky Fowler and Brooks Koepka. So Fowler, we know, has really been struggling, trying to find his game. But I like that last week he made the cut at the Genesis, and his scores were 71, 71, 69, 71. So a little bit of consistency from Ricky Fowler is huge. And surprising to me, in strokes gained tee to green this year, he's actually 38th. So, maybe he's on the right path here. And with a couple of good bounces here or there, the improvements for him in strokes gained tee to green will result in some better finishes. He also won it the year before here, so he loves this course. Brooks Koepka, 10,100, and he's shown his inconsistency lately. Tied for third at the Waste Management, and then missed the cut at the Genesis. We know he's a Florida guy, but the inconsistency with that price makes it tough to go there. Does he come out with ultra focus? If he does, he could certainly be victorious. The runner-up to Fowler in 17 was Gary Woodland. He's 8,200 this week. He missed the cut at the Waste Management by 1. I was watching him on that 18th green, grinding, to try to get there, but he wasn't able to do it. Missed the cut by 1. He's had success here. Borderline for me. I don't know if I'll get there. How about the winner back in 2015? Patty Harrington, 6,700. And we know he was the Ryder Cup captain for the European squad. He's been playing in different spots. He's been playing some on the European Tour, on the Champions Tour. I like the price tag for him. If he's going to show up, you got to figure he's ready to go. We know he's an ultra competitor. So keep him in mind for a potential GPP play. Daniel Berger was the runner-up that year. In 14, Knox was the runner-up, and Ryan Palmer, who we've talked about. How about some of the winners from the previous years? 2013, it was Michael Thompson. He's a GPP option for me this week, 7,500. He has missed his last 2 cuts, so he is more of a GPP option. He's also had some top 20s recently, so it's been boom or bust for him. Rory Sabatini won this event in 2011. 7,000. He made the cut at the Waste Management. We know he played well in the Olympics, so he's still riding high from that. Playable option there. And then Camilo Villegas won it in 2010. He was also the runner-up in 07. And, some of these guys who are probably a little bit towards the end of their career are, making a good fight here. And he's been playing well lately. He's made his last 3 cuts. So he's an option. Luke Donald is the last guy. 2008, he was the runner-up. He's made 3 of 7 cuts this year. But he and Villegas, they're not just guys who had high finishes here, 12 to 15 years ago. 2 years ago, Luke Donald was tied for 11th on this course. So with his ball striking, we know he can get it done. So 6,400 is an option there. A couple other horses for courses here with some interesting profiles. How about Tommy Fleetwood? He's played here twice, and he's finished 3rd and 4th. He's 9,900 on DraftKings. His last event was over in Dubai in January. He finished tied for 12th. So Tommy would be, I think, a GPP pivot off of some of the Americans in that price range who've been playing more consistently or more often over here. And then 2 guys who finished tied for 4th 2 years ago, Brendan Steele and Lee Westwood. Brendan Steele basically makes the cut here every year, but he's had 4 straight missed cuts this year. So he's, if you want to get to a GPP with the guy who fits that profile, every week you can find a few guys who are awesome on a course, but they've been playing well. And so you have to decide which one you want to favor, the poor recent form or the terrific course history. So there's an option there. And then Lee Westwood, similar, making the cut here. And he's been making the cut on the European Tour, but he is right in the middle of that controversy with the Super Golf League. And it's amazing that we're this far into the show. I haven't mentioned it yet because that was some big news the last couple days with Phil. I think, you know, you could tell from Phil's statement that this is certainly weighing on him in a big way, and it's taken a lot out of him, a lot of stress. Um, as for Phil, I just hope that he is back out there playing soon because he's so fun to watch. But I think the controversy has weighed on some of these other guys, and we can see it in their performance. I rolled the dice with Dustin Johnson last week, and it did not work out. We know he's been one of the guys linked to that league and was one of the last to come out and say that he was sticking with the PGA Tour. But Lee Westwood is one of those guys who hasn't made that sort of announcement. Um, and so, will the uncertainty for him distract him from his performance? I'm gonna fade him this week in case that it does, and go with some other options who don't have that off the course issue hanging over their head. All right, let's hit one more stat here, and that is scrambling. Uh, in the winning stats from 18 and 19 and 20, all of the guys finished in the top 5 in scrambling that week, and it makes a lot of sense. Remember, this is such a tough course to hit the green in regulation, so do that as much as you can, and then if you don't, scramble and get out of there with your par. For folks who haven't looked at that stat much, it is the percentage of times if a player misses the green in regulation, he is able to finish the hole with par or better. So basically, you can get up and down for par, or if you happen to chip in for birdie, that's the stat we're looking at. And once again, I pulled the guys in the top 25 in that stat from this season. Number 1 on the list, Daniel Berger. So again, he's great tee to green. He's great with scrambling, perfect fit for the course, but we know that he's just not 100% healthy. Sung J M is number 2 in that stat, and that's why I favor him as a pay-up option this week. How about number 3, guy we haven't talked about yet today, Denny McCarthy, 7,800 on DraftKings this week. Great at scrambling, probably in large part the fact that he's a tremendous putter. And he is a local guy, lives close by, finished tied for 3rd last year. And his last 3 events on tour this year, tied for 6th, tied for 12th, and then a missed cut at the Waste Management. So put all that together, I'm willing to roll him out there this week and hope that he keeps rolling it on the greens. By the way, I did see another stat that this is one of the easier courses in terms of putting. And again, that's why you would expect an advantage for McCarthy, where if the greens themselves aren't that difficult once you get on them, he can take advantage of that elite skill that he has. All right, next in scrambling this year is Mark Hubbard. And he's another real cheap option here this week, 6,900. Last week in the Corn Ferry Tour, he finished tied for 6th. And in this event, 2 years ago, he was tied for 11th. So I like Mark Hubbard here this week at that price. Robert Streb, he kind of fits that profile like Brendan Steele. Good on this course. Last year, he was tied for 13th. But in his last 2 events this year, he's missed the cut. So if you want to pay the 6,700 for him, you've got to hope that he turns it back on this week. Billy Horschel, 9,600, pay up guy, pay up option, another Florida guy. He has finished in the top 5 here before, been playing really well lately, tied for 11th, tied for 6th. And then KH Lee, how about this guy? He has made 8 straight cuts and did have a top 10 in this event 2 years ago. Check that, 3 years ago. 7,700. So you combine that history of making the cut here with his scrambling stats this year, he's in the player pool. Charles Howell III missed the cut at the Waste Management. Remember, that was his 600th start on tour. Now that he has that behind him, I would figure he would perform better. He's 7,300 this week. Then we've got Michael Thompson. I mentioned him as a winner in this event. He's been great with scrambling this season. And then Louis Oosthuizen, is the last guy there in that top 25. So, like Berger, like Im, they're in the top 25 of both of the key stats this week. All right, let's round out with a couple other random commentaries and categories. Uh, I like some of these Florida guys who are excited that the tour is back in Florida for the next swing of events. So Denny McCarthy is in that category. Billy Horschel. Lucas Glover's another guy who's been pretty consistent here. How about tied for 19th last year, tied for 4th 3 years ago, another top 20 in 18. Mid-tier option, 7,400 on DraftKings, made the cut at the Waste Management, finishing 37th. So you could look there. How about a couple of these sponsor exemptions? Chase Koepka, Brooks's brother, is back in the field this week. He's 6,300. His only PGA Tour event this fall, he missed the cut. But in this event last year, he made the cut, finished tied for 30th. So if he can match that, we love that as a $6,300 option. Nikolai Hogard is an interesting one. How about his recent performance overseas? In his last 4 events, he has missed the cut 3 times and won. So add him to the pool of GPP options at 7,600 on DraftKings. And then I'll finish with a couple of value options in the 6K range on DraftKings. Austin Smotherman, 6,800. His last 2 events, tied for 11th, tied for 33rd. And he's 28th this season in strokes gained tee to green. So just outside that top 25, but a nice price tag. Chase Seifert was just added to the field when Tyler Duncan had to withdraw. Seifert finished 3rd in this event last year, but he's missed his last 2 cuts. So he's in that same category as Streb and Steele. He's 6,400 this week. And then finally, Vaughn Taylor has made his last 2 cuts, and he is 30th this season in strokes gained tee to green, 6,800. Could be one other solid glue guy for your lineup. And that's going to be the key here, as usual, is grind it out, try to get 5 or 6 guys through the cut. And it's just a tough event. It's almost like a U.S. Open feel, where par is a really good score on a lot of holes. So if you're tracking this event, if you see a string of pars, then you can feel really good about that. And hopefully our guys will just make enough birdies to make the weekend and then try to contend. So that's the breakdown of the Honda Classic. Hope everybody enjoyed that. I am Andrew Hansen. You can find me on Twitter at Language Olympic. You can find our team on Twitter at DFS Coach Talk. And if you jump in today with a membership, you can grab my golf lineups tonight. I'll have the DraftKings Coaches Clipboard with some core plays and then pivots to fill out your roster. I will also have the full FanDuel and Yahoo lineups for our members, cash lineups and GPP lineups. And to get those lineups as a member, just go to our website, dfscoachtalk.com. Sign up there. We'll get you into our Discord, and the lineups will post tonight. And then we'll have basketball up and rolling again tomorrow, 7 days a week, as the NBA comes back from the All-Star break. So on behalf of the entire DFS Coach Talk team, I'm Andrew Hansen. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time as we look to crush it in DFS.